Greetings and salutations for those of you who are joining me by livecast. This is a first attempt to essentially run through a litany of things with respect to buying a motorcycle, particularly if you are new to motorcycling and you are just getting into motorcycling, or you're coming back into motorcycling and you're not sure what type of bike to buy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through some of the steps, at least, or to take you through my approach to purchasing or buying a motorcycle, so you can kind of get into my head to see the way I've gone about doing my research and that sort of thing. And hopefully this will be a bit of a boon or a help to you, or to those of you who are either new to motorcycles, not sure what to buy, and some of the other details or the finer points that you may or may not have considered in buying a motorcycle. I'll preface this presentation by saying that typically motorcycling in the United States has been seen as more of a recreational type of activity. At least that's been my sense of it, as opposed to a means of transportation, such as it is in other countries like Thailand, China, India, even in the UK and in Europe. Many people in a lot of those countries, because they live mostly, or a lot of them live in urban areas, will typically own either a bicycle or some kind of two-wheeled motorized form of transportation, and it just makes more sense. And so with this, I guess one of my goals is to try to change a little bit of the thinking about motorcycling, two-wheeled transportation, and getting around, as it's not just, doesn't have to be considered just a recreational form of transportation as well. Also, I'd like to draw, I'll do a screen share here. And I'd like to give a shout out to Slippery Mongoose Motovlogs. There is a whole subculture, if you will, of motorcycling on YouTube, and motorcycling has taken on a little bit of another life on YouTube, where you have a variety of different people that ride motorcycles and talk to themselves, and they talk about a variety of different subjects. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to Tridden Motovlogs. I'm giving him a shout out only because we exchanged stickers, and really cool guy. And a lot of these Australian vloggers, they're really, I would say this about Australians, New Zealanders, and people from the UK. I would say that they take their motorcycling a little bit more seriously than many of us here in the United States. That's not to say that some of us here in the States don't take motorcycling seriously, but it seems to be more a part of their culture than it is ours. And I'm also hoping to change that as well. This guy here, Marks4303, another great guy, New Yorker, and him and Defobra Motovlogs, another great guy. Give him a shout out. I've gone on a group ride with these guys. They're down to earth, salt of the earth kind of guys, and really easygoing. And of course, Toast to Go. I'd also like to give him a shout out. He's been around for a long, long time. And he's gone through a variety of different bikes and stuff, but really mellow, easygoing guy. And I just wanted to give him a shout out and acknowledge him as well, as he also actually made a composite vinyl sticker for me and stuff. And so we exchanged stickers and so forth. So anyway, I'd also say, like, I don't particularly, and as of late, I don't Um, I don't really watch too many moto vloggers, and I have my own personal reasons for why I've sort of pulled back from getting too into like the other moto vloggers, because, and it's not that I don't appreciate or like what many of them do. It's kind of what makes the world go round. I've just sort of devoted my attention in other areas, and but I think it's good to watch a lot of these guys because each has his own artistic bent or contribution to make on a theme. So anyway, so we'll get underway here with the motorcycling and some of the things that I do when I'm looking for a motorcycle, or when I've started to look for bikes. Now, obviously, your budget is going to be a big thing. You have to ask yourself what you can afford. So most people that get started in motorcycling are not typically don't want to spend too much money, because it's not something they know whether they're going to, continue and take seriously. So the investment, they want to get into it, but at a minimal investment. Also, some people who maybe considering getting into motorcycling will also, if they're honest with themselves, they'll ask themselves, well, what kind of bike do I really like? How much can I afford to spend? And I probably don't want something that's going to get away from me or that I can't handle. Now, there are bikes in a lot of different categories for beginners. You have bikes like these dual sports down here, these Kawasaki KLR and KLX. Those are in the $5,000 to $7,000 price range there. And then if you go to the street bikes, which is what most people tend to get into, you'd be looking at something like these Ninja 250s here, which are in the $4,500 to $5,500 price range. The Ninja 300 replaced the Ninja 250. Ninja 250s have been extremely prolific for quite a few years, and had dominated the small displacement motorcycle market for quite some time. So a lot of people always, the Ninja 250 or 300 has kind of become the staple bike for a lot of beginners, and it's kind of become synonymous with the term beginner bike in some small way. Also, Honda has some offerings in the beginner category. They have a couple of bikes. I actually glossed over a couple of them. I couldn't, and I was remiss, but they still have, you can still get a CBR 250R, which is their single cylinder 250. And it was built to go up. This bike was predominantly built for the Asian markets, in the Indian markets as well. And it was designed to go up against the Ninja 250, which of course later became the 300. And although it had proved to be every bit as good as the Ninja, it was just short on power, and it couldn't quite, it didn't have the cachet or the appeal that the Ninja did. The Ninja just looked like it was just thought that the Ninja was a more aggressive looking and sportier looking bike. And this kind of looked like a, I don't know. I didn't mind the looks of the bike at all. I thought it was fine. But then again, that's personal preference and taste. One of the things, the price point for this bike is around between $4,500 price range, depending. 2013 was the last year for the 250 displacement CBR, and then they went up to the 300, and it's essentially the same It's essentially the same bike. They've just changed a few things cosmetically. on the bike. They've changed the exhaust. The front of the bike now looks a lot more like a CBR 1000 RR, which I thought was a little ridiculous. That's kind of a cool color scheme, the matte black with the yellow accents. And they wanted to make it, I guess, look more like their high-powered bike. I think that that's kind of irrelevant. It looks fine, and for some people, it probably looks better than the outgoing model. In addition to the 300R, which is their sport iteration for the small displacement, they have added a Street Fighter iteration of this bike, which is, again, the same bike without the fairings, different headlights and turn signals and so forth. So you're getting a little bit more of a, can see the engine a little bit more, the frame is exposed a little bit more, and there they are both side by side. In this picture here, you can enlarge it a little bit. The naked sport bike market, if I could just make a sort of a side commentary, has become extremely popular here in the States. Street Fighters, nakeds. And I would say that probably one of the reasons for that, there's several reasons for this. They are good looking. They're cool looking bikes. You have the high bars as opposed to a lower bar profile, which for some or many makes for a little bit more a riding posture, particularly over long distances and so forth. The other reason is that naked bikes, naked sport bikes, if you will, tend to have a lower insurance. The insurance tends to be less on a naked bike, or has typically been less on a naked bike than it has been on the fully faired bike. But that's kind of a side point. So if you're looking for a motorcycle, I don't know that that's the case with the smaller displacement bikes. I'm guessing that the insurance is probably going to be the same. It'll fit into the same category in the 300cc range and such. Another bike that some people now Suzuki has not had a small displacement sport bike. They've had a few other offerings, and I've not heard any news as to whether that's going to change or not. Typically, there are small displacement bikes that are available in this line. Here's one bike, and for those of you who have been in the MSF course or taken the MSF course, are probably familiar with this bike here. So this is, again, around the $4,000 price range, very retro looking, classic looking, that sort of thing. So you have the price point is probably appropriate for what it is. And it's not a bad bike at all. Having ridden quite a few bikes myself, it's a great little bike. There's a lot of aftermarket parts for this because the bike has been around for a very long time. So that's another bike to consider there if you're looking to get back into cycling. Someone with a bigger frame, heavier, might not like this bike so much, but this would be a great commuter bike for local runs, short jaunts, that sort of thing. I think its top speed is probably around 75. I could be wrong on that, but it's an air-cooled single-cylinder bike. And then for those of you who like to geek out, when you go and look at motorcycles, what I tend to do is I tend to like to look up the specifications of the bike, which starts to get you more into how is the bike accessorized, how high is what's the seat height. If you're a shorter person, this is something that you're probably going to want to take into consideration with respect to purchasing a bike. Motorcycles can be lowered at the dealership. They do make what are called lowering links, which lowers the profile of the bike, brings it a little bit closer to the ground, so that if you have a shorter inseam Your reach from the top of the seat to the ground will not be as extreme as some of the other bikes. So that's another thing to bear in mind. And then when you look at go through the specs, you'll look at whether it's carbureted. There are few bikes, I think, that still have the carburation, and trying to remember at least one of the bikes that I can think of is the Suzuki DR200, which is their other small displacement dual sport. But this bike does have fuel injection. Fuel injection means that you don't have to worry about setting the choke up for colder weather and stuff. It's basically what we would call a turnkey bike. So that may be another consideration there. This is a 5-speed transmission, as opposed to many of the newer bikes all have 6 speeds. Cruisers typically have either 4 or 5 forward gears. I think most of them have 5 now, if I'm not mistaken. I think some of them may even have 6. The fuel tank capacity is another consideration. If you're someone who is concerned about fuel economy or the range of the bike, if it gets good fuel economy and it has a relatively small tank, it's still going to have a decent range. If it has a small tank and it doesn't get good fuel economy, then again, that's going to be another consideration that you'll want to think about. There's your wheelbase ground, and here's your seat height. It has it in both millimeters and in inches for people who are on metric or the American mathematical calibrations. Then curb weight in kilograms and in pounds. Now, 326 pounds is extremely light. It's a very, very, very light bike. When you start getting up to 400, 400 pounds is considered light for sport bikes. And anything over 450, you're starting to get into a much heavier bike. The reason why weight should be a consideration when you're purchasing a motorcycle. If you're not used to riding a lot, eventually a heavier bike will take its toll and will tend to fatigue you more on longer rides. Also, starting and stopping at traffic lights, holding the bike up can also be tiring as well, particularly if you're not in like tip-top physical condition, because all people that are riding motorcycles are coming from all walks of life. So I'm just putting all of these details out there just so you can understand like how my thought process is. And you may not even take these things into consideration or much less care. So anyway, so you have this bike here. Suzuki also makes dual sport bikes, which make a great beginner, learner, and or secondary bikes, or you can even have them as primary. Some people use dual sports as primary motorcycles. And this DR200S, which is actually a new offering, it's actually an old bike with sort of some new clothes. And I think they've done an excellent job with the look of the bike. It looks very contemporary. It looks more contemporary, I guess, than its counterpart, which is the SE, which is more utilitarian. It doesn't have these so much of this plastic fairing thing going on. But this model is particularly more for looks than utility, but it's still great. And I've heard nothing but good. Would be sort of my almost third or fourth view of this. I've done a couple of other videos on this particular bike here. Actually, I'll show you the one that I've looked at before, which would be, let's see, this one here, the S or the E, is it? The SE, yeah, the DR200 SE. It's the same bike, basically, the metal tank. And it kind of looks, many people think it looks dated. I don't really care. I still think this is a cool looking bike, in my opinion. It has the grab bars on the back. It has a place if you wanted to put like a mounted top case. and all that sort of thing. So this would be the more utilitarian iteration of the same bike. But a decent bike, a small displacement, 200cc, air-cooled, four-stroke bike. I believe this is still carbureted, but let's check. I'm pretty sure it's got a Mikuni carburetor on there. So still carbureted, but no big deal on that. So that again is around the $4,000 price range. If you're thinking about a bike like this. These make great commuter bikes. The other thing, and the reason why this would be good in an urban environment is because you have a lot of suspension travel. And since for people that live in the Northeast in particular, or in really wintry climates, when the spring hits, you get a lot of the sand and salt, but it also, all of the snow plows that go over the asphalt tear up the asphalt, potholes, the whole 9 yards. If you're on a bike like this, you're not going to worry, you're not going to give a hoot or holler about whether or not the conditions of the roads, because obviously this bike was designed to do riding on and or off the road, which again makes it another sort of smart. I would consider this a smart buy because it will give you access to a lot more real estate as opposed to just staying on the tarmac. Not for everybody, but still, I say this is a decent bike. And so there's that one. And what else do we have? So I went to Triumph here as well. Now, Triumph motorcycles do not have anything in small displacements. However, that does not preclude them from lending themselves to somebody who's a beginner. You are going to pay a little bit more, well, probably quite a bit more money, I would say, because these bikes started around in the $7,000 to $8,000 price range. Large displacement, air-cooled parallel twin, around 60-ish horsepower, lots of nice and torquey. You hear the word torque, and the reason why a lot of people will buy torquey bikes or a bike that has torque is because you don't have to spool the motor up or wind the motor up to push the bike along. In other words, it'll just, it'll move right along without having to give the to accelerate so much. But this is what you'd call like a retro classic type of bike. Very good looking bike, lots of tons of accessories for the Triumphs, as they've been around for years. There's a lot of different companies, one of which comes to mind would be British Customs. They have a lot of aftermarket parts for these bikes here and so forth. And please, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section of the video. I'm not able to respond to comments immediately, only because I can sort of multitask, but not really. So let's just segue from here and go into, let's say, okay, I want to get into riding. I want to start learning how to ride motorcycles, and I'm probably going to buy one eventually. Well, before you can even throw a leg over a motorcycle in most states, you have to be certified. So you might want to go to the msf-usa.org and look at the curriculum, look at the requirements, and go over all of those things that will help you. You can enroll. It will also help you to locate where MSF classes are conducted. Typically, it costs around, all in for the course and the licensing fees and that sort of thing. It's around, I would say, between $200 and $300 US to complete the course and that sort of thing. And then, of course, once you get your certificate to take the course, then what some states will do is they will amend the letter M, as in Michael or Mary, to your driver's license. and then that will just indicate that you also are certified to have or to operate a motorcycle. That's basically how that works. The other thing when you're buying a motorcycle is motorcycle insurance. So you're going to want to look up motorcycle insurance. Progressive is generally, Geico or Progressive is generally the go-to places that a lot of people will just start out at. You probably won't get the best rates with some of these larger companies, although a larger company means that you're probably going to get better service. Smaller company insurance company that's more localized, you'll probably get a much better rate, but the service may not be as agreeable. But you also want to look into insurance rates, and the things that will affect your rates will be obviously demographics, whether you live in a city or in an urban or a suburban area or rural areas in your part of wherever in the country you're living. And the other thing that affects your insurance rates is obviously age. Like between 16 and 25, insurance rates are generally very, very high. After you turn the magic number of 25, insurance rates typically go down. And then again, of course, the type of motorcycle that you choose to get will also determine how much or how little. Now, several things just to recapitulate with respect to insurance rates and all of this. This kind of all ties in together. A lot of people, a lot of guys are like, I want a super sport bike, and that's fine. If you take out a loan on a motorcycle, that will be the other sort of element to all of this. Whether you end up financing your bike or paying for the bike cash outright. Another recommendation is that for those of you who are really, pinching your pennies, want to get on a bike, but can't afford to get a loan or take out a loan on a new bike, and maybe want to spend a lot less money, you can find very good bikes for like around $2,000 to $3,000. If you pay cash for a motorcycle, in other words, you pay for it in full, you are not required to have full coverage on the bike. But if you have a loan on the motorcycle, the bank wants to know that in case you crash or wreck the bike or it gets stolen, they're going to be able to, it's insured for all of those things. But I would say you'd want to get like theft on a motorcycle, whether you have a loan on it or not, just so that in case you have the cost of having to replace the bike and that sort of thing. But horsepower and the type of bike that it is will greatly affect your insurance premiums as well. So if you're going to take a loan out on a motorcycle and you're obviously going to have to insure it, you have the expense of the monthly payments. So you want to ask yourself, what can I afford every month? In other words, what would be, an acceptable, what is an acceptable number? So here what I'm doing is I'm just typing in I'm going to Ducati.com. Ducati also has some decent motorcycles. For those of you who may have a little bit more disposable income, actually, I should say this. The Scrambler, the new Ducati Scrambler, is going to be a really good entry-level bike. Probably, well, some people are saying probably not the best, what do you call it? Probably not the best beginner bike, but I would still say that if you are semi-competent in your ability to ride, I would say that you would probably be fine on a Scrambler, on the new Ducati Scrambler anyway, which is, here we are, let's see. And they have several iterations of the Scrambler as well. This is like I think it's between it's like around an $8,000 price point. And they've taken the motor It's air-cooled L-twin, which came out of the 796, if I'm not mistaken. They've put it in a new chassis, and it's got a very retro feel to it. Yet with modern components, you have this monoshock swing arm configuration back here, L-twin. I think you can, and they've automatically, not automatically, but they've actually put a lot of accessories. In other words, the company has made it so that you can accessorize this motorcycle any way you'd want to. The other thing that I should probably point out, the difference between having like a dual sport bike, like something like this and something like this, or something like the Scrambler. The tire, this is something that people don't, I mean, I didn't think about this initially when I started getting back into bikes, but people overlook tires, the type of tires that a bike requires. Now, a type of tire that goes on this bike, or a bike like the Triumph Thruxton, Scrambler, or Bonneville, like this here, or a cruiser, or a dual sport. I'm not sure what the life is on these tires here. I would say probably, I don't know if I had to guess, maybe 4, 5, 6,000 miles, depending on how much you ride it on the dirt or the pavement. I really don't know. But the compound or the tire requirement for this type of bike here, or this Scrambler type of bike here, these are generally going to be a lot harder compound, which means that you're going to get a decent amount of road time on these tires. Whereas if you were to go with something more like a sport bike, not necessarily these smaller displacement bikes, because smaller displacement bikes don't really eat through tires quite to the degree the higher spec, larger displacement sport bikes do. The sport bike tends to, well, if we could just, I wanted to cover that bike too, but let me just go to street, and let's go to super sport. So when you go to a bike like this, the tires are designed to give you maximum grip on the road, and they're for performance. And because they tend not to have a lot of shelf life. Now, having said all that, it's not that there aren't tires out there that will give you a lot more shelf life on these higher powered super sports bikes. It's just that you're going to pay more money than you would say for a tire like on this bike. Okay, so that's another expense, and that's something else you might want to consider with respect to all that. So anyway, that's really all I have for now. I just try to cover the preliminary details of all of this stuff. And if you have any questions or comments, and or whatever, also feel free to join if you're on Google+, I have a Ducati International community, and it's a great community. There's a lot of people there with extensive amounts of knowledge on motorcycles and sales, all of that good stuff. And they'll be happy to answer any of your questions. If you want to come and watch, I have posted some racing videos from last year from World Superbike and World Supersport. You're welcome to come in and watch those and just have a good time. So spring is right around the corner, about 2 months away. And so I figured I'd just put that out there. And I hope you guys enjoyed this brief exposition on motorcycles and getting back into it. I hope some of the information was helpful, and perhaps we'll cover a little bit more. If you can provide me with some subject or topic matters that you would like discussed, I'll be happy to do that. In either case, stay warm, and we'll talk to you soon.